Yeah, brand new, brand new. This is the first class in the first building, in the new building. Yep. Which also means not everything works, but we're getting there. No, we're good. Just getting the live stream going. Check. Let's see, over here, is this going in? Check. Recording, or the broadcast. Okay, people there on the live stream, just give me a thumbs up in the live stream chat if you can hear me. You should be able to hear me. Everyone can see me. I mean, we're on the stream there. And it's a little bit delayed, so that should be coming up in a second. How's everybody doing? Good. Monday morning, first day of school, new class, new building. Fun, huh? Cool. Does this look cool? It looks really cool, right? Yeah, very cool. Good. Okay, people can hear me on the live stream. That's great. Good. Everybody here is here for AVC 200, animation and interactivity. Yes? Okay. And feel free to answer my quasi-rhetorical questions on the live stream as well, so I can keep an eye on that. So I have the YouTube chat open over here as well. So everything goes out via OBS over here. I have it on the other screen while we're doing stuff. In this case, the stuff is talking about the syllabus because we need to get rolling here with everything. So everybody, first of all, welcome to the new building here. Let's see. We are in what is now SWC, Steamworks Center 102. So the syllabus may erroneously say 103 because it updates from some other system that will be adjusted, but this is room 102 here. And today, everything will be going out over the live stream, obviously, and then everything will also, in order to show off the new building for the people who aren't here in person today, we're actually going to do 2 streams. So once we're done here, about 2 hours in, then I'm going to close this stream, then open another one from my phone so we can like walk around and see the building for people who are at home. So a little bit different. That usually won't happen each day, but that's sort of what we're doing today, just to sort of check everything out here with the brand new building. So keep that in mind, people in live online. And let me go over there so I'm a little bit smaller in the corner. And let's do all the business stuff because that needs to happen the first day. Okay, like I said, SWC 102. So much work from so many people to get this building to this point. Funding this building, building this building, configuring this building, everything. Crazy amount of work. All came together over the summer here, and then just got over the line within the last couple of weeks here in order for us to have class in here today. So you're part of history. The first class in this new building. You'll go down in the annals of Glendale Community College history here. We should take a picture, actually, at some point for posterity. So that's great. It's been, something I've been looking forward to for a long time, and it's going to be great. There's a lot of capabilities we're going to have here in this room, which just simply weren't available in High Tech 134, where some of you may have taken classes before. That's where I was teaching previously. And it's going to be great. Looking forward to it quite a bit. So with that in mind, let's talk about this first, because my classes are a bit different from other classes. So this class, you can take it in multiple different attendance options. However, it has changed slightly from what I was doing previously. So there are two modalities in which to participate in this course, either in this room on Mondays and Wednesdays, 8:30 to 11, or live online, Mondays and Wednesdays, 8:30 to 11. I'm moving away from the asynchronous work. Everything is still going out on YouTube. It'll be archived there as a tool for you to look at what's happening and go back and review all the clicks. It's all super, super valuable for everybody. In addition, all of that information is indexed later. But for a variety of reasons, people sort of working at their own pace and not setting the schedule just really wasn't working out for the kind of heavy coursework that this class is. So another word of alert here. I'm teaching 3 classes this semester. This class, which is AVC 200, also AVC 185, which is today at 4 o'clock, the 3D modeling class. And I also teach AVC 240, which is the cinematography and directing. If you're taking, well, all of my classes are a lot of work. We have this weekly cadence that you really need to keep up on. And it's just very much structured for in-person learning. And I try to make the online experience as much like being in the room as possible, which is different than some other online classes where the class is kind of a checklist of things on Canvas that you work through at your own pace. That's not what we're doing here. Everybody kind of moves along together, and I think that's necessary in order to do the kind of quality learning that I like to have happen in these classes. As a result, if you're taking 2 of these classes this semester, be aware of that. That's a heavy lift for a student. If anyone's taking all 3 of my classes, like you're in here all day, like I'm in here all day on Mondays and Wednesdays, we should have a chat after class, because that's a really heavy lift to take 3 of my classes in one semester. I would not advise it under most circumstances. So keep that in mind. So multiple attendance options, and those 2 options are in person and live online. As a result, there'll be probably like a checkbox kind of thing on Canvas that's not up today, that'll probably be up on Wednesday, that everybody can just sort of check at the beginning of class, like passing the attendance sheet around, just checking the box thing, just to keep everybody honest there in terms of that. Now, in terms of switching back and forth, let me be clear. In-person learning, I think, is the best way to do it. Period. Is not just me kind of conjecturing about that. It's now that I've had, we're coming up on 5 years post-pandemic to really think about online learning as it pertains to the kind of stuff we learn here. The results are clear. The students who are here in person always do way better than the students who are not. The data is not even close in those regards. The quality of interaction here, even though you've all put yourself at a very safe distance from me, no one sat in this row closest to me here. I'm not hurt, but I noticed for sure. Hi, how's it going? Good. You want to sit in this row over here? The in-person learning, the interpersonal interaction, and then also the thing that I think a lot of students don't realize is that by committing to showing up in person, you're prioritizing the class and you're prioritizing it in your schedule, which helps a lot of students with time management, which, let's be honest, isn't a skill everyone's coming into community college with in terms of scheduling and everything else. If you sort of let the school schedule this and work around that schedule, I think that's a little bit more successful. That's not true for absolutely everybody. There's some people who come in with excellent time management and scheduling skills. They're definitely not the majority of students, right? So committing to being here in person, and then if not possible, live online, Mondays and Wednesdays, 8:30 to 11, that is going to really facilitate your success in this class. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. In terms of switching modalities, that's fine. Okay. If you at all feel physically weird, kind of a little sick, anything like that, by all means, don't come in, right? The pandemic taught us that, and this really facilitates perhaps us all not getting sick this fall with whatever it is that goes around, right? So that live online is perfect for those kind of situations. Is everybody with me there? So you don't need to tell me I'm going to be in person this day or online that day. That's for you to manage. I'm saying to you, when at all possible, be here in person. If you're not used, if it's possible for you and your schedule to be here in person, given whatever your life situation is with work and home and family and everything, you should absolutely prioritize that. In addition to that, this semester, we're going to try to take advantage of a lot of the physical stuff that is in this room. When you see the tour later, people online, SWC 102 is the fully functional virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality classroom at Glendale Community College. So all 24 stations have VR headsets. We have a wraparound immersive projection in here. Hold on, let's make it more immersive. Boom. Yeah. Yeah. It's the same screen, just multiple times there. But you like that? It's pretty dramatic. It was. I got to get a sound effect on that button. Yeah. I've got a Stream Deck over here for all of this stuff, but there definitely needs to be a soundboard on the Stream Deck for me to start triggering a lot of sound effects. Expect a lot of sound effects. Anyway, what was I even talking about? The being here in person is going to help you take advantage of all of the hardware and experience that we have here. And also, I like to think the students learn something from me. That may or may not be true. You definitely learn stuff from each other. And that happens way more when you are all in the same room, right? Just even if you all learned a lot through your mutual dislike of me, that would be great. I would love that, right? That's usually not the case, but everybody coming together in person, I'm emphasizing that. And yeah, that's the first of many rants I'll have about the importance of in-person physical interaction. There's a lot of communication here that gets lost online. The online thing is great when it's absolutely not possible for you to be here in person, but yeah. Okay, I'm trying to keep up with the live chat there to some extent. I'll keep that in mind. In fact, yeah. So if you, everything goes out over YouTube. Let's see here. The link is on the homepage of Canvas. So let me go over here. Okay, here's the channel. And then this looks a little bit different. This link should take you directly to this tab now. And so all of the courses I teach will show up here over the course of the semester. Each week's weekly assignment will also have links to that week's lecture as well, or lectures as well. But that's where everything shows up here. In the past, we were also sending it to Discord, but I don't think we're going to do that anymore. Most people just bookmark this and then that works fine. Just be aware that all of my classes go to this channel. So you have to read, they'll all be labeled like this, right? So you're looking for the AVC 200 ones. Every Monday, Wednesday, you'll also see 2 other lectures for 185 and 240. Everybody with me there? Okay. So that's all there. And that's linked from here, and that also goes to all of the assignments. So any questions about this, how the modality of this course operates? Look at the live stream. Dom, you are crushing the online participation here. So, I mean, you guys probably know this, but I don't look at it as much. There's a, you get the crown if you talk the most on the live stream, and Dom has secured the crown for sure. Okay, any other questions from you guys in the room? A lot of you have taken my classes before, so you're on board, and everyone else usually gets up to speed pretty quickly. Great. Okay, a little bit about the schedule. We're Mondays and Wednesdays, so that means we always lose a couple of days during the course of the semester. This semester it's Labor Day and Veterans Day. And then Our last lecture day is December 19th, which is or December 9th, sorry, which is a Wednesday. And then, 13th is the last lecture. The 16th is going to be our final exam. So keep that in mind. You moved the final exam to Wednesdays so that we have a little bit of extra time on final exam week. The final exam for this class is just a review of the portfolio that you've put together all semester long. Okay. The work for this class, we have these weekly projects. At the beginning of the semester, a lot of them will be kind of like standalone, where it's like we did this one thing this week and we're looking at everybody's thing. And then as we move towards the end of this semester, we're probably working on a larger project and we're doing a piece of it each week. And that sort of adds together into a larger thing. In this class, these projects include animation and interactivity. For those of you who have keep in mind, it's best if you've taken AVC 184 before this class. It's not a hard prerequisite where I turn people away, because sequencing in the digital media arts program is difficult because there's not that many classes. For instance, this is another thing that students typically get confused on. I mean, you take English 101, you take English 102, there's hundreds of sections of those classes, right? There is one section of all the classes I teach, this one, right? So there's not a lot of options for everybody. And with that in mind, in the digital media arts program, the animation program, we tend to not be crazy about the prerequisites for everything. But AVC 184 is Introduction to Computer Animation, and that is definitely advantageous. If you're taking that now at this semester with this class, that's okay. Just be aware that, one of them is going to feed into the other here. So keep that in mind. But everybody should have taken or is taking this semester AVC 100, correct? Which is intro to computer art or something along those lines, which is just the 1 credit, getting going. Everybody has taken that class? Yeah? Okay, good. Great. This class is considerably more work than AVC 100. AVC 100 is a 1 credit class, right? This is a 3 credit class for you. Keep that in mind. So your schedule. If you're here in person, if you're live online, you're already a large way to allocating enough time to do well in this class over the course of the semester. But be aware there is time and needed for you to dedicate to these projects on a weekly basis. So keep that in mind. It might be a good time, if you haven't done this already, to sit down and actually look at your weekly schedule, right? When do I work? When am I supposed to be in class? When am I sleeping, right? All that kind of stuff. And look, what are the extra blocks that I can actually use for studying and homework and projects? Just have a real conversation with yourself about that, right? Because there are students who are so jam-packed that it's like, I don't know where that goes. If that's the case, really think about that at this point, right? How could you create more time or reevaluate things in a way that's going to make it possible for you to do this kind of work? Because the kind of work we're doing is creative work, right? So this is animation interactivity, and this is the official course description and official course competencies. And so we're taking a lot of the things that are done in 184 in terms of essentially moving pixels on a screen, animation, but we're adding interactivity, which means instead of them just playing and us sitting back and watching them, they're interactive. They require some kind of input. And what's one thing that most of you do on a regular basis that has both animation and interactivity in it? Marcus? Video games, right. And there's also a lot of fans of video games here in the class. Some of you are in the video game program. Hi, are you looking for AVC 200? Yes, come on, sit down. Just grab a seat anywhere. We make, last semester we made sort of 2 larger games and a bunch of tiny game experience kind of things over this course of the semester. So yeah, this is a super fun class. And so we satisfy these course competencies and course description through creating a series of games and interactive experiences over the entire semester. So be aware of that. Not everybody who teaches this class does that, but in general, the students have found it super engaging, and people have made some really great games in this class that we'll talk about later. Required text. There is no required textbook for this class, but let me just segue directly to required materials. And this is the one I would encourage you all to get out right now. Your notebook. I'm a big notebook guy. Big. I feel like this has been lost a little bit in primary education in the last 10, 15 years. And I've rededicated myself to writing things by hand, and I would encourage you to reevaluate that. A lot of you may not have as much experience with it. The data, which I'll present later, is absolutely 100% clear that writing things down by hand results in much, much, much higher retention than typing them or typing them on your phone or anything like that. Note-taking by hand is a skill that if you don't feel comfortable doing it, I would encourage you to use this class as an opportunity to really experiment with that. Dedicate yourself to that. For instance, the notes about the class here. So the notebook is super important. There is no text. We're going to have a combination of our notes and then all of the lectures, which will be archived on YouTube. And then I'm not going to get into it today, but on Wednesday, I also have a system for transcribing all of the lectures that uses the YouTube transcription. So we'll look at that. A lot of you who have been in the digital media arts program already have some kind of external hard drive. If you already have one, great, you can continue to use that. Using web storage as your primary storage for this class tends to be problematic. We're going to be working with larger files, bigger things that aren't the kind of Word doc that you can just email to yourself, and that's a good way of moving it around. So having an external hard drive is a good idea so that you are able to work here on these computers and easily move things from computer to computer. Also, it's a reasonable starting point for having some kind of backup. We'll do a really exciting lecture about data redundancy later, right? Look forward to that one. How to back up your data, how to make sure it's safe, right? Doing all this creative work is great, but if you accidentally delete it, that's not so great, right? So we need to make sure that we're not losing all of our data. So having an external hard drive is a good part of doing that. Let's talk about the computer. So using those computers in the lab would be a really good starting point for everybody here. We've got all these these are like really good machines in here that should be able to handle absolutely everything we're doing. What about your computers at home? Here's the situation there. So What do we want to have? We're doing heavier graphics work in this class. That requires a computer with a dedicated GPU. I'll talk later about the hardware in more detail, which means it's not a Chromebook, it's not an entry-level laptop, it's a laptop or a computer that has its own graphics card. Usually an NVIDIA graphics card would be great. If it's, for those of you who know this thing and you have a really nice gaming machine that has an AMD card in it, that's fine. That'll work for the most part. But if you don't have a computer at home to work on, in addition to working here, right? So the plan is work here, be able to save all your things to your external hard drive, and then also work at home. When you're working at home, if you don't have a computer that you know is going to work, we have computers that you can check out for the semester. These are laptops for free from GCC. You just need to fill out this form, the GCC device student request form. This allows you to check out a computer, it's a laptop, from the IT department that you get to use, not like checkout from the library where you need to return it every 2 weeks. This is yours to use for the semester. And yeah, this is an awesome program we have here that, again, through a lot of thoughtful funding allocation by the administration, we have this whole fleet of laptops. However, we do not have an infinite amount of them. So if you know you're going to need a laptop for working on the homework at home, fill out this form today, okay? Because also the IT department doesn't give these out like all the time. They kind of have one day a week where they're disseminating these laptops. And so you need to make that work with your schedule, all that kind of thing. So the sooner you get this, if you know you want to use a laptop from school, fill this form out as soon as possible so you have something to use at home. Everybody with me there? Okay. For those of you who aren't quite as hardware savvy, how do I know if my computer has a GPU? You can look at this very short video that I made about this. You can also look at it right here. If you look at Task Manager in Windows and come over here to the second one down, you can see exactly what's going on with your computer. We'll talk about this as we do work throughout the semester in terms of like, why does my game not work? This window usually has some good clues there. But down here, if we have a GPU, it's there. And if this says NVIDIA something, then you're probably good for the class. Are some NVIDIA cards better than others? Yes. Do we need to get into all of that right now? No. But having a dedicated GPU that actually does its own pixel crunching over there is great for this class, necessary. Everybody with me there? Those of you who are gamers probably know all this already and have already, built your own custom machines, Marcus, for doing all of this, right?
Actually, that's pre-built.
Okay. My last machine was pre-built as well. But that doesn't keep me from opening it up and trying to mess with it. Great. If you have some financial student aid and you are planning on purchasing a new computer this semester, some of you have already actually emailed me about that. I usually make some kind of recommendation. I'll put that up on the class Discord, later this week about that, if you don't have any idea or need some guidance there. And then, actually I have to change this. Working in this lab, not during class. Stay tuned. It's brand new. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure when we'll have the building open here. We're going to try and have it open sometime. So I'll let you know as soon as we have an idea here about what's going on. To work here in the lab when we're not in class. Okay, is that clear for everybody? Yeah? Okay. And everybody, how many of you know you're going to request a computer from GCC? Show of hands. Okay, a couple of people. Good. The other people, you pretty confident with your home computer situation. Good. We can confirm that in the week 1 technology orientation because I ask everybody to show me exactly what it is you're working with at home. For this class in particular, for those of you who have Mac computers, you should check out one from the school. Because we're making games are applications. Having the Mac compile applications that run on Windows ends up being just needlessly complicated and tough for the class. Almost everybody is on Windows, and so if you have a Mac, definitely grab one from the school so that you have a Windows machine to work with this semester. Okay? Does anyone in the room physically have a Mac? It's less and less every year. We used to be all Macs here, years ago, probably, God, over 10 years ago at this point. But for a variety of reasons, one of the most important ones being they're like really expensive, we stopped doing that. Okay, good. Let's keep going with the syllabus stuff. We talked about course modality. We talked a little bit about the class and what we're doing in here. We talked about the required taking notes, having your notebook, having the external hard drive. The other thing with writing notes, there's never been a better time to write notes by hand because turning those into text on the computer has never been easier. OCR technology is built into almost everything at this point. So you can back up your physical notes and also turn them into text with literally a couple of clicks, which is pretty amazing. We'll talk about that later. We talked about the computer. Okay. Controversial content. This is an art class, so we'll look at different art examples over the course of the semester. Some of the examples may have content which some people may consider controversial or offensive. These views don't represent my views necessarily. They don't represent the views of Glendale Community College or Maricopa County Community Colleges. If I'm showing you something, it's for a reason. I'm not showing you needlessly offensive stuff, but there's it's art. So everyone's coming in with their own interpretation of what they think that is, and we'll talk about that at length over the course of the semester. But that's our statement about that in the syllabus. Grading for this class, I want to draw, this part down here, the letter grade part is what I assume is fairly normal, what it looks like in most of your other classes. The part up here is what I want to draw your attention to. And so the average for our weekly projects is 3/4 of the grade, and then the final portfolio is 1/4 of the grade, right? So making it through the entire semester and then presenting your portfolio at the end, you have to present the portfolio at the end to sort of make it over the finish line there. But the portfolio at the end isn't some new body of work that you've just conjured out of nothingness at the end of the semester. It is what we've worked to incrementally throughout the entire semester, week by week by week by week. Everybody with me there? Yeah, a lot of your art classes are like this, right? Where portfolio, this is a project-based class. We're making things every week. That's the best way to learn. And then also it allows you to build this portfolio of work that you can use to show potential employers. Because that, at the end of the day, you'll hear me say this again and again throughout the course of the semester, that's what really matters. If you want to do work in a creative industry, anyone who's going to hire you is going to be like, great, let me see what you've made. Almost no one is going to say, great, what grade did you get in AVC 200, right? In terms of like creative jobs I've had, none of those jobs asked about my transcripts. They were all like, wow, I saw that thing you made and I want to hire you to make this thing. That's how it works with all these things, right? So I'm not saying don't get good grades. In this class, both of those things are aligned. If you do good creative work, you'll get a good grade in this class. And most of the art classes are aligned in that fashion. Everybody with me there? Cool, great. Cool. Like I said, our attendance is, being in person, being live online. Okay, let's talk about the weekly schedule here. Or just communicating first. So communications. I'll show you guys here in a second. We have, for when we're not here in person and live online, the best way to talk to me and everyone else in the class is on Discord. Most of you are probably already on Discord, using Discord for a variety of different things. So we've made the Digital Media Arts Discord, and every class, for the most part, has its own channel. And that's where we communicate about the class. So over here, and over here, and over here. There we go. Discord. This is where we talk about course content and any sort of artistic questions. What do you guys think of this? Does this look good? Is this working? I can't get Unity to blank the blank blanks. All of those kind of questions go on Discord. Any sort of personal academic issue, something happened, I'm having a hard time keeping up, those questions are an email. Okay, this helps me make it possible for me to actually communicate with everybody online by sort of siloing these kind of conversations. So all of the normal conversation about the course happens on Discord, and then any personal communication, that's when you would send me an email, right? Don't send me an email for things like, I tried to open this project in Unity, it didn't work. Post that on Discord, because not only can I answer your questions on Discord, you can answer each other's questions on Discord. In fact, you do every semester. You guys are the best support for each other in class, which is great. So Discord is there. Let's see if we can pull that up over here. There we are. Yeah, and so over here are the 3 channels for my classes. You'll see channels for most of the other digital media arts classes here on our server. And so make sure you join the appropriate channel over there. Is that clear for everybody? Yeah, everyone seems to like this a lot. Now, the only thing I ask you to do that's different than like quote unquote normal Discord use is that a lot of you already have Discord profiles with other names, right? It's going to be hard enough for me to learn your name versus your other names, right? Whether it's Darth Pancreas or whatever it is that you've chosen as your Discord moniker. And I ask you to change your Discord server nickname to the name you use in class, okay? However, later we'll go around and introduce ourselves here. However you want people to address you, change your Discord nickname to that. This doesn't change your Discord name on all of your other stuff. It's just for our server. Does that make sense for everybody? Yeah. Okay. It just makes it much, much easier to know who I'm talking to. Otherwise, it becomes very, very confusing. Sound good? And like I said, this does not change your name on your other, the rest of your Discord identities. Because we're going to introduce ourselves quickly here in class eventually, and then we'll also introduce ourselves on Discord as part of our first week of stuff. Any questions about that? Okay, great. Everybody writing things down? Late work is accepted at my discretion. let's call it the schedule for the class. So on Mondays, we're in here and I present, new information, whatever the project is that we're doing that week. On Wednesdays are us looking at the previous week's projects. So part of doing the work every week is that you make a short presentation video every week about what it is you did and whether or not you had any problems, right? And it's this on Wednesday, we spend most of the class looking at those and answering questions and going back and forth. And then the rest of the time on Wednesday is sort of filling in the gaps on what we may have missed on Monday. Okay. And so the project that we started on Monday is then going to be due the following Tuesday at 8 p.m. So every week has this interlocking schedule because you're finishing up the project on Tuesday, and then that Monday I will have started talking about the next week's project. And then here on Wednesday, we're looking at the ones from before. So it ends up being this interlocking thing that happens every semester. This may seem a little confusing right now. Once we get rolling, which is going to take 2 weeks here because the first week is kind of just, the first week is Ragnarok as we just, try to barely get things rolling here the first week. But once we get some momentum here, this sort of becomes pretty obvious for everybody. So the main due date you need to remember for my class is Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. I make it at 8 o'clock and not midnight like other classes in an effort for me to communicate to you that it's important to sleep occasionally. Okay. A lot of you will sacrifice sleep to get things done. I too have done that. However, I wish I would have prioritized sleep a little bit better, especially at your age. I mean, now at my age, it's just simply off the table. Like I can't sacrifice sleep to catch up on stuff. And so it's forced me to become a much better scheduler of things than I used to be. So I understand that's not always the case when you're younger, but as a way to try and encourage that, I make my due dates, at 8 rather than midnight to, hopefully if you're up to date with everything, you can get some rest. Make sense? Yeah. Because in terms of like your personal cognitive performance, there is nothing you can do that is going to improve your personal cognitive performance more than sleeping. That is 98% of what you could do to be smarter, better, and faster, right? That's the number one thing. Sure, eating right, all those other things are important. Sleeping is the biggest lever you can pull on that for performing at a higher cognitive level. Cool. We're doing projects in this class, right? So there's not quizzes or tests or anything like that. We're doing creative work every week. If you totally disappear for 2 weeks and I don't hear anything from you, like there's been no Canvas communication, there's been no email, there's been no Discord communication, I reserve the right to drop you from the class at that point. However, as you can ask the other people who have taken classes with me, I am, what I consider to be an extremely reasonable human being. If something comes up during the course of the semester, just stay in communication. I want everybody to complete the class. It's not in my best interest. It's not in your best interest to take this class multiple times. So stay in communication, try and stay up to date, and keep up with the class. That's the best way to keep going forward. When we make these videos and talk about them on Wednesdays, this, a lot of times in other art classes, this idea that like you present people and then you present something and then people talk about it, the art word for doing that is critique. Okay. Some students really get apprehensive about that word. It doesn't mean we're going to be critical all the time. It's just the word that the art culture uses for that activity. Okay. We're really just getting feedback. And I'll talk more throughout the semester about how to give feedback. Because not only am I going to be giving feedback to you, obviously, but you'll be giving feedback to each other. And being able to give feedback to fellow artistic practitioners is an enormously important skill. It allows you to work in a group of artistic professionals in a way that is, sustainable and enjoyable. So keep that in mind. So we'll be, providing feedback during the Wednesday sessions and then also on Discord. So in general, everybody's very positive. What I would encourage everyone to think about and what I would encourage you to write down now is I would write down positive but valuable feedback, right? It's great when people post things and we talk about things in class and everyone comments on Discord like, looks good, thumbs up, fire emoji, 100%, for reals, right? That's great. I love the positive momentum and that's valuable. But also being able to provide some sort of direction about like, have you thought about this idea? What about doing this too? I really like this part was the best part. Any sort of specificity combined with positive feedback is much more valuable than just sort of general positive feedback, where it's like, great. There's not a lot you can do with great, right? Like, sure, it's good to receive a great, but like, how do I continue to improve after a great? Right? So something we can look at throughout the semester, that's definitely been something I've noticed over the last few years on Discord. Everyone is very positive, which I enjoy, and it's certainly better than the opposite. I'd rather have that than everyone being a jerk to each other on Discord, right? Which does happen on some Discords, I've heard. Where let's be positive, but let's also think about specificity there. The rest of the syllabus sections here. So third-party tools, we need to provide all of this stuff now. These are all the terms of service and privacy policies for all of the pieces of software that we're using throughout the semester. Some of this is other boilerplate about netiquette, right? Netiquette is the old-fashioned word for how you behave online. And for those of you who have never looked at your academic student handbook, I would encourage you to download that and have it as a PDF on your computer. This is something that's a frequent source of confusion. The student handbook changes each year. It is the institution's contract with you. We're doing this, you're doing that as a student. And the handbook for the year that you start is your continuing contract going forward. And so keep that in mind. It's a really good idea to understand a little bit about what's going on with the institution. This is one of the things that we, as an institution, are trying to do more of, is a lot of you are coming in from high school where your education was kind of managed by you, but the high school does a lot of there too, right? In terms of you need to take these classes, you need to do this, you need to do that. Once you get to college, and community college in particular, you are in charge of managing your education along with the advisors and the department and everything else. And so taking that first person initiative to manage your education, one of the best steps you can do is at least be aware that there is a student handbook and college handbook and academic catalog, and being aware that those are there. Okay, let's come up here. So now, as in the art department here, we are all putting AI statements in our syllabi now. And so this has become, it's just becoming an increasingly important and relevant topic. And so let's talk about this for a minute. There'll be different AI policies for different classes. So what I'm going to talk about here is a policy for this class, okay? For other classes, it'll be different. Keep that in mind. This is not an institutional policy. This is my class policy, okay? Everybody with me there? So, I spend a lot of time interacting with this technology on a variety of different levels. I was invited as a guest speaker to talk about art and artificial intelligence for the past 3 years over at Paradise Valley Community College. I've presented on these topics a lot of different places. So there's a lot of experience there. I'll talk about them throughout the semester. I realize that some people have some very strong feelings about the ethical and environmental concerns of different types of this technology. And so I want to, I also have concerns about different parts of it, but it's a giant thing that is in many different parts, different types of tools used for different things. So here's the best way to go forward with all of this, to my mind, is to be completely transparent about how we're using these tools and when we're using these tools. If everybody is clear about that and doesn't withhold any information, then everyone can make informed decisions about how they want to react to that. Okay, that's my underlying policy. So this statement is my statement about being completely transparent. And that's also what I expect from you about transparency. So be aware. I use these tools in what I consider to be a very targeted and thoughtful way throughout the course of the semester. And I have done like a lot of work around using these tools to create tools that students use. So I don't require you to directly touch any artificial intelligence or machine learning or large language models throughout the semester. It is not required. However, be aware that I've used these tools, for instance, to create our entire lecture search system that we use throughout the course of the semester. In addition, I've used these tools to create like a really large and fully featured Udemy tool set that you'll use throughout the course of the semester. So if you feel really, really strongly about these tools in a certain way, and you don't want to be involved in any secondary or tertiary exposure to AI technology, then this might not be the class for you, okay? Meaning that I've used a thing, I've made a standalone thing, and you use that thing, but that thing was made with the assistance of large language models. If you find that ethically unacceptable, that's a no-go here in this class. We will talk later about a lot of the ethical concerns for how these tools were made in a lot of different instances, but their usefulness in certain aspects, I think, balances that out. So keep that in mind. That's my being clear with you. Yeah, in the cases where I've made things that I think students can use, I've really weighed the pros and cons here, in that this technology has allowed me to make things at a scale which was just frankly not possible before. Like I just simply didn't have the time available in my life to sort of create things at this scale before. And now it's there because it can move much, much, much faster. So there's a lot of things. We'll talk specifically about what those are later. But keep that in mind going forward. Throughout the semester, I may do some demonstrations about, if you want to directly use these tools, here's how I've done a handful of things. But again, you won't be required for any of the projects to directly use the tools, rather use something that I've made with the tools. So again, the other thing I would say that if you're making these no-go decisions based on being exposed to secondary or tertiary levels of abstraction from artificial intelligence, that's going to be tough to do, digital computer work going forward, right? Essentially, every Adobe tool now has some machine learning based aspect to it. So all of the Adobe stuff would be off the table at that point, right? There is some level of inevitability in the adoption of some of these kind of things. Has a lot of the adoption been fueled by nonsensical, crazy propaganda? Yes, definitely. So we can talk about this obviously at length later, but this is my effort to be completely transparent about what's going to happen here. Is my, like, again, the details here are important. I don't want to take 2 hours to talk about this today. We'll take 2 hours to talk about it over the course of the rest of the semester in smaller bits. But everybody clear on, is my transparency seems sufficiently transparent? Good. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to be as thoughtful as possible in terms of our interaction with that technology. And I would encourage you to also be thoughtful there. Good. So let's see, where are we at on time? Okay. A lot of the rest of the syllabus here is a lot of our required portions. Our regular and substantive interaction, you may have seen this in other courses listed as RSI. Academia is jammed full of acronyms, so that's one of them you may have seen. One of our primary forms of RSI every week is making our presentation videos about everything. Okay. Okay, I think that's the main things I wanted to say. Any questions overall about the syllabus stuff? Those of you who have taken classes with me before, do you feel like I'm missing anything? Good. Okay. So, like I said, this first week, the schedule is different than the rest of the semester. The rest of the semester, we get on that Tuesday night deadline. There's nothing due tomorrow night. Today's Monday, right? The first big Tuesday night deadline is a week from tomorrow. This week, we have some other things here. Let me do the thing. Where's the button for this student view thing? This thing. There we go. There we go. So this is what it looks like for you. The way I lay out Canvas is fairly simple. Everything will be here under modules. That should be the only thing you really need to click on. And so this week, you've got, today's the 24th. Everyone needs to take the syllabus acknowledgement quiz by Wednesday. Everyone needs to take the syllabus acknowledgement quiz by Wednesday. The syllabus acknowledgement quiz is very simple. It's a true-false, like I'm sure you see in many other classes. I've read and understand the syllabus. Yes, right? If you don't take the quiz by Wednesday, I have to drop you from the class. It's take it, okay? Like just between now and then, it's like 30 seconds of your time, and that will be done at that point, okay? So do that so everything settles. And then Thursday is the technology orientation. which allows you to get your home computer set up with a lot of the software that we need for this class. I'm already getting hoarse here, and I'm not even halfway through the first class. This day is always rough for me. Like, I probably talk more on this day than I have in the last 3 months. I'm not typically a verbose gentleman walking around and pontificating for 7.5 hours a day. But, you know, then I show up at the first day of school and I'm required to do that today. So that goes a little bit into the course of the semester, right? If this is the entire semester, X on the graph is here's the beginning of the semester, here's the end of the semester. At the beginning of the semester, we have a lot of me talking. And then as the semester goes on, there's less of that. And then you have a great creative work at the end. Over the course of the semester, this is you talking in your student videos. And so, like, be aware that this graph here also represents your creative output or creative control of what's going on. So at the very beginning here, some of these assignments or projects may be like, I don't know, man, that wasn't very creative. Yeah, maybe the first couple of weeks it wasn't. Because we're just trying to get used to what's going on with the software. Most of the software that we use in this class is new for many of you. So be aware of that. At the beginning, hang in there. We got a couple of weeks of sort of getting our feet wet and getting going. And then there'll be more and more of your creative signature on the work as we go throughout the course of the semester. Okay, so for instance, we'll do the classic interactive bouncing ball here the first week. And then we'll look at everybody's bouncing balls. They're not going to be wildly different, right? Everyone will be fairly similar. So keep that in mind as we go throughout the course of the semester, but we'll do, it'll be more of your creative input throughout the course of the semester. Everybody with me there? Okay, so this is the technology orientation assignment. This is due Thursday night. And yeah, it's a big checklist of stuff because I try to front load the checklist of stuff so that you kind of get that out of the way and then you're ready to go. If you are, a lot of what we're doing here is, you know, signing up for stuff and then also registering and then finally installing. If you're borrowing a computer from school, chances are you probably won't have it by Thursday. Do you know when they're handing those out?
Oh, they already have them out.
They're already, okay. But are they doing it, like last year they only did them on 1 day a week, like where you could actually physically get it?
So if you submit a request, you can go to the help desk at HC1 and they should be to.
Okay, so it's like rolling now? They should be able to, yeah, okay.
Keep in mind, if you submit a request, wait a day or two because we have to get it ready.
Yeah, yeah, because the laptop you're getting as a digital media arts student is different from the, you know, the regular old laptop that the regular students use, right? Yeah. And so keep that in mind. So even if you're waiting for the computer, if you have somewhere where you can install this, you can, all of the software here, it is not, you can reinstall it on the school computer later when you get that. So you're able to go through the technology login here and get all of your accounts set up, regardless of what's going on.
There is a caveat. So previous years, students were able to just install stuff.
Yeah, I've got a link to the YouTube video there on the thing that you guys did. Yeah, so those of you who've had school laptops before, you got one from school and it was this wide open thing. You can install whatever you wanted on it and it was great. It's a little bit more complicated this semester. So I've linked to the official Office of Information Technology. You need to get clearance in order to install certain things. This will be the first semester we're going through this as a group, so there may be a little bumpy, but be aware, those of you who especially have borrowed a computer before, it'll be a little bit different this semester. So that video here that I've linked to right here, if you're borrowing a computer from school, watch that, okay? It's different than it was in the past. Everybody with me there? Okay. So keep that in mind. And my other point here is, like, you don't need to delay on this assignment. whatever computer you have, even if you, this first week's assignment is not going to be some crazy computer intensive thing, right? You should be able to run it on like virtually any computer. And so you should be able to get this one done, no problem. You'll need to take some screenshots, a little bit of information about taking screenshots there, and then talking about the different software we're going to use for this class. OBS, Open Broadcasting System, is actually like kind of running this whole room. Like all of the software in here, is kind of, all of the visuals are being composited through OBS, which is pretty cool. Anyways, that's this. Some of you, Marcus, use this already. Like anybody else use this to stream for, how many of you guys have a Twitch and or something else channel where you stream stuff? Okay, yeah. And so you have already probably used this and you're ready to go with OBS. For those of you that haven't, I have a short tutorial here about downloading and setting up OBS, because it's what I want you to use to record your weekly presentation videos. Okay. It's by far the best software for doing that, and it's like industry standard, and there's really great. It's really great. It's very lightweight in that it's not taking up a ton of resources for when you're doing other things on the computer. And yeah. And so the first video I'll ask you to make is a video introduction. And we will watch these slowly, okay? Because we're going to have our Wednesday where we look at everybody's projects. And then I want you to all be able to introduce yourselves, but we're not going to do them all at one time. And so you all will record your intro videos this week. And my projected schedule is they'll try to watch like 6 every Monday, okay? As such, these introduction videos need to be 3 minutes or less, okay? There's 20, this is a full class. I think we have like 20, I think we've ended up with over 22 people in this class. So when I tell you to keep the videos within a certain amount of time, it's not because I don't want to hear what you have to say. It's just that we want to hear what everybody has to say, and we only have so much time. And so we need to keep things within that time amount. As the semester goes on and you've got more to talk about, the time gets longer and that makes it easier on you. But occasionally we have students who just are completely unaware of how long they're recording, and they send me like 15-minute videos, and I'm going to have to cut you off, right? When that happens. So does this mean if you turn, like, I will not accept a 3-minute and 5-second video? No. Okay. Like, that's fine. All right. I'm just giving you the ballpark here. Don't go wildly over it, especially if it's a week where you have a question and, you know, like you need a little bit of extra time to explain what's going wrong. By all means, do that. All right. I'm just trying to keep it honest so that we have enough time to talk about everyone's work. This is one of the hardest parts. Any of you who have been in other sorts of artistic critiques have seen this happen. The person who shows their work first, turns out we ended up talking about that for 45 minutes. And then at the end of class, it was like, oh, what did you do? Looks good. Great. All right, everyone, see you next week, right? Have I done that? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trying to not do that every week, where we try to give everyone some sort of equally distributed attention. And so part of that is trying to keep the videos with the same amount of time. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. And so we'll look at these over the course of the next few weeks, 6 or so every Monday. And so this introduction video, you need to address the following things in 3 minutes. Your name and how we should address you. And then this year, I've asked for some more detailed information about what you are doing here, because this allows you to also come to a degree of specificity about what am I doing here, right? There's a lot of students that I'm like, what program are you in? They cannot answer that question. you want to be able to answer that question, right? That's going to be the key to making sure that your time at GCC is both purposeful and short, right? There's a lot of people who get to community college and kind of aren't able to answer this question and end up spending way more time here than was necessary, right? So which program are you in here? The options for 99% of the people in this class are the Digital Media Arts Associate's degree, the Animation and Time-Based Media Associate's degree. There's an Animation Certificate, although I don't really think any of you are in that. And then we also have the Video Game Production Program, VGP. And so this class is required in all three of those programs. And so you are in one of those currently, probably. If you're not sure, you can log on to your My Maricopa to get some clarity about exactly which program are you in. Now, is this confusing that we've got something called Animation and Time-Based Media and then Digital Media Arts also has a time-based track? Yes. Yes. I wish I had better news here, right? The institution is aware of this, where a lot of times the number of programs, the tracks within those programs seem overlapping and confusing. The institution has gone to great lengths to try and consolidate that and make it less confusing and give students a clearer path to graduation or transfer. It is a work in progress, and we are making incremental progress every year. You have to understand the complexity of it. Glendale Community College is part of Maricopa County Community Colleges. Anyone know how many community colleges are in the MCCC district? Yeah?
Like 12.
Yeah, it's 11 or 12, depending on how you want to count them. And so the good news is all of the Maricopa County Community Colleges have agreed to use the same degree programs, meaning that the courses that you take to get this degree are the same across all of the Maricopa County Community Colleges. The bad news is all of the Maricopa County Community Colleges have decided to use the exact same degree programs, right? Get it? The good news and the bad news are the same news. In this case, that means in order to make any changes to said programs, everyone, not just at Glendale, at all of the schools needs to agree about that. And so it is a slow process to change that. So things are better than they used to be. This was not the case when I started working here. And so that was worse. And things are better. Are they great? They're getting there. Okay. But it's important for you to be able to know what is my path forward here? Exactly what do I need to do? How many of you carry around a printed out version of your course checklist? I would recommend it. I mean, I'm an old guy who used to carry around printouts, but it might be worth your time and just having a physical map of what do I need to do to be done here and move on with my transfer, career, degree, etc. Right? Knowing the answer to this question will help you along that path. Additionally, how many of you have seen the Digital Media Arts advisors within the last year? So Jason Beckerman, Jessica, and Aubriana are the advisors for all of these programs. If you haven't checked in with them recently about how you're doing with your progress towards your degree, they are incredible people. They couldn't be friendlier. They are amazing. They're the best people we've ever had doing those jobs. And so they are incredible in terms of guiding students through their degree programs or switching programs. And doing the best decisions for you so that you get done here in a reasonable amount of time. Because you guys all know this, right? Even if this is your first semester in community college, you will soon meet what is the career community college student, where someone has been here for like a really long amount of time. Sometimes that's okay. Other times it's like, we should really be moving on, right? This is a lot of times a stepping stone to something else here. Everybody with me? Okay, so I can't emphasize this enough. This is part of what I said earlier. You are in charge of your education here. You've got to steer the ship. This is different than high school in that way, where now you're in charge here. What do you hope to learn in this class? Any previous experience that you have here, and I want you to show a piece of artwork and talk about it in your example here. Admittedly, you're going to be talking about it briefly in order to get this under 3 minutes total. Okay, so pick one thing that you've made. If you've made other animated or digital work from other classes, show that, because that's pertinent to what we're going to be doing here. Make sense? Okay, so this is your introduction video here. Signing up for Discord, I already talked about this. Use your Discord. Please create a name that is how you want to be addressed in class. We'll be using Blender throughout the course of the semester. Some of you have already taken AVC 185. Some of you may be taking AVC 185 this semester. Those are both good. If you haven't taken AVC 185, I'll bring us along in Blender, but having more skills in Blender helps in this class. We'll be using we'll probably touch on a lot of the Adobe programs throughout the course of the semester. All of us have access to the Adobe programs at home through your Maricopa student email. Everybody has probably done this, at least in AVC 100, right? Use the Maricopa Adobe at home. So for this assignment, you'll have your YouTube link, because your OBS recording you will be posting on your YouTube channel that you have as a part of your school YouTube account. So go ahead and write this one down. Do not post videos on Discord. All the videos that we make are going to be too big for that. And so most of the time when we're sharing those, will be, sometimes I'll have you post screenshots on Discord, and that's fine. Like, that's not too much data. But when we post videos, usually we post those to the YouTube channel and then post the link on Discord. Everybody with me there? Okay. So no direct videos on Discord. Just to emphasize this, do not buy Nitro. Discord tries to sell you Nitro constantly. Some of you may already have Nitro. Great. Whatever. You do not need to buy Nitro for this class. You don't need to upload giant files to Discord. In fact, don't do that. We'll be uploading links to the videos, not the videos themselves. Everybody clear on that one? Okay. But be aware, Discord is going to be like, hey, what about Nitro? Want some Nitro? How about Nitro? Right? It does it all the time. Great. And our screenshots. So, commenting on other students' posts. Show me that you installed Blender. Show me that you've got Adobe Creative Cloud installed. So it's a big checklist of stuff, but once this is out of the way, then you're kind of set up for the semester. Make sense? Okay, and so take the syllabus acknowledgement quiz as soon as you have a free moment. Then I would get started on this because it is possible to run into some problems here. right? Where, I don't know, I tried to install this thing and this didn't work, or this process up here of using Delinea, which is going to be this extra step before installing things on your loaner computer. So this is going to ask for permission, and the permission is only going to be granted during normal business hours. Is that correct? All right. So that'll be one thing to keep in mind. Waiting to install all of this stuff Thursday night at 8 will not work. In fact, I may actually move the deadline for this up to avoid that problem, or maybe back to make it Friday at noon, so that doesn't, to just try and avoid that deluge of problems. Because is there someone like physically pressing a button over there, like looking at a thing and saying like yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, that's new for those of you checking out computers from school. Is that one extra step? Yes. Are you getting a free computer to use for the entire semester? Also yes, right? So computers giveth and computers taketh away. All right, I don't see any questions coming in over the live stream there. Some of, yeah, so occasionally in class, students have the YouTube live link up so people in person can see what the people live online are saying. One of the big reasons we do these videos is that I want everybody to know who the other people are in the class. And so by having the videos that we watch every week, it keeps everybody honest. Obviously, the people in person know the other people in class because we're all in the same room, right? That's great. But I don't want the people who have to participate live online to be these invisible ghosts in the class. And so by having these videos, it makes it so that we are able to visually identify one another, which allows me to get to my next thing, which is when you're recording your videos, and I talk about this in OBS, I strongly encourage you to include your camera feed in your video. Is it 100% required? No. Okay? I understand there's some home situations where it's not possible. However, let me underline the word strongly there. If you're not including your camera feed because you don't like it, or anything short of like it's a very... Is there someone in that room? I highly encourage you to turn the camera on. All right. It's part of the interpersonal communication while you're presenting. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. So, yeah, it's your time to talk to us. Please strongly consider having the camera on for that. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. And then, Brandon, I think what we did when you record, if you just want to record and then we'll do the translating live in class, that way it's not, you get one less step for you, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because we've done that before, and then you guys can watch the video and then translate for everybody here, and that works. That worked well last time. Okay. Good. All right. Everybody's clear on this week's schedule. Great. All right. Let's stop talking about the syllabus. And And let's look over here at Unity. Okay. Unity is our main tool throughout the course of the semester. First of all, let's look at my Zoom it chops. There you go. Why learn new software? Some of you already know Blender, you know some Adobe stuff. Why am I throwing another thing at you here? Unity allows us to do the interactivity part. If I type it on the screen, that's definitely a good starting point for your notes, right? And then I would use your notes as a way to sort of expand beyond that there. But Unity allows us to do the interactivity part of this. The interactivity part ends up being manifest as computer code. Now, everybody take a deep breath. For the most part, we're not directly writing a lot of any code really this semester. Those of you in the video game program may have taken CIS 103 or 4 at this point and have some familiarity with that. But we will be interacting with code. Why? It allows us to tell the computer what to do. That's really all it is. In fact, you'll hear me use the word algorithm throughout the semester over and over and over and over and over again. Algorithm is just the fancy word for instructions, right? Sometimes those instructions involve math, not very often for us. Like we are doing some pretty simple math here for a lot of our game design type things. But Unity is what really allows us to do the interactivity, right? Because a lot of you know Blender already. Blender allows you to take 2D and 3D things and animate them, right? But the animation is linear, right? It just sort of plays from beginning to end. Whereas what we're doing here is non-linear. So with that in mind, right? So linear Blender gives us a timeline, right? The whole project has one timeline. What's the other 2D animation program that you used in 184? Those of you who have taken 184. After Effects, right? AE, so I'll abbreviate that a lot of times. What other animation programs has anyone used in here? What's that? Premiere? Right, video editing, and definitely can animate some things in there as well. What was the other one? I mean, those are our main two-dimensional ones. You may have heard of other things like Toon Boom and Moho, and there's other 3D programs, Cinema 4D, 3ds Max, Maya, all of these. Those are all linear 2D and 3D animation programs, meaning that linear animation, the final product is a movie file, right? Usually an MP4, which is a compressed movie file. The movie file, there is no interactivity there. You simply set something up and someone hits play and watches it. What we're doing here is we're going to take all those animation skills and then we're going to apply them in a non-linear environment, which means we don't know how it will play out. There are multiple paths, choices, decisions. It can turn out in different ways, right? And our multiple paths mean that we need to make decisions. And so the decisions are facilitated by some sort of code or algorithm, something like that, that allows us to make these decisions. And this is why we're using Unity throughout the semester. Unity is the environment that allows us to do this. And at the end of the day of our final project, we don't end up with a movie file, we end up with an application. You click on it, and then there's some degree of interactivity. This semester, in addition to making regular computer, quote unquote, we'll just say standard computer games, something that you use a mouse or perhaps a keyboard or a game controller for, we're also going to make some virtual reality content here, right? So something that someone experiences in virtual and or augmented reality. We'll talk about the difference between those things later. But we have an application, and the application allows us to actually have people interact with what's going on there. So that's why we're doing this. And it's pretty rowdy over there, especially for no other classes in this building. So does that make sense, right? You'll hear me talk about this throughout the semester, the value proposition. Why even do this? Why learn this new thing? Why add this new plugin? What does it let you do that you couldn't do before? And I think it's really important to contextualize your decisions based on these value propositions when you're using a computer. Because complexity comes at a cost. I try to make things as simple as possible for the students and make them as fully featured as possible. But the second you try to add more features to something, you make it more complex, and that may make it more complicated and harder to use. And so we're always trying to balance those two things throughout the course of the semester. Okay, does this make sense for everybody? Okay, great. Unity handles both 2D and 3D things, and some of you may be aware the two environments here for programming this kind of thing are Unity, and then you may have heard of the other one, Unreal Engine. A lot of games are made in both of those environments. In addition to, a lot of games are made with tools that look a lot like Unity and Unreal Engine, but are actually, quote unquote, proprietary software developed by whatever company's designing the game. Okay, so that's why we're learning this. And let's talk about something here. What happens in Unity? We take 2D assets and 3D assets, and it doesn't need to be exclusively one or the other. So what would be the example of a 2D asset here? Marcus, here's your one answer for this one, for the class. Sure, a texture. What kind of file is a texture? Sure, PNG, right? Max, what would be another 2D asset? Sure, a vector file. That would be something that would come out of Illustrator, previously known as AI. I think they maybe want to change that one at this point. Anyway, yeah, 2D assets. A 3D asset, something like a mesh, or perhaps a volume, all those kind of things. Authoring these things, meaning actually designing them, this is not what Unity is for. Unity is not a drawing program. Unity is not a modeling program. The modeling we'll do in Blender for the most part. The drawing or designing we do in 2D could be coming from a variety of different places. How many of you use Procreate at home? iPad people with Procreate. Yeah, Procreate's totally usable for this class. I won't be demoing a lot of it, but anything that can output a PNG file, right? So Procreate, how many of you use Krita? Yeah, Krita is a big one, right? Because it's freely available. And then there's a bunch of other ones with Fire Llama. Who uses Fire Llama? Anybody? Yeah, Fire Llama. There you go. All those programs output PNGs, right? So they're all viable authoring programs to bring into Unity. Our primary 3D authoring program will be Blender, right? Blender can output meshes and volumes to bring into Unity. So both of these go into here, into Unity. And here's where we, certainly at the beginning, we'll be taking those assets that we designed somewhere else and animating them, and then also adding interactivity to them. Here. So what I just crudely sketched on the screen here is a workflow. Our workflow will change throughout the semester. And even for you project to project, and depending on what it is you want to focus on, depending, you may be using a different workflow than someone else in the class. This is being able to understand this, what each program does best and how the programs work together is a really important part of doing this work. Me personally, I have almost no projects I do professionally now that just use one program. Wouldn't it be great if we could just learn one program and it did all the things? Yes. Have people been trying to do that for the past 40 years? Also, yes. Right? And so in order to do this kind of work, it requires combining different workflows, which does require a little bit of technical knowledge here in order to make sure that the stuff you're making in one program is going to work in another program, right? And so being able to understand what goes where and where it is best to make a thing is a big part of doing this work. And we'll talk about this over and over again throughout the course of the semester, right? Does it make sense for everybody? Okay, so for right now, this is primarily what we're thinking about in terms of workflow. Although this will get more complicated throughout the semester. Like our 3D workflow may be multiple steps: modeling something in Blender, taking it into Substance Painter, painting it in Substance Painter, and then dumping that into Unity to show in real time, right? Or drawing textures in Photoshop that then go into Substance Painter that then go into Unity. Yeah, someone in the chat there said Clip Studio and Clip Studio Paint. Anybody use those? Clip Studio Paint is the same thing, right? They're not two separate programs. I don't really use Clip Studio, but yeah, that's another one a lot of students use, right? I understand the student attraction to open source and free programs. But a big part of that has been provided the momentum behind Blender over the last 7 years. And now Blender is a much more industry standard tool, much better than it used to be. Cool. Okay. This makes sense for everybody, right? So also the important thing over here, which 2D programs? No program. What about all the IRL stuff? Sketching things on paper, taking a picture of them, cutting them out, painting stuff. All of that is also on the table here, right? You'll hear me refer to these as analog means of production. Those are all available to you over the course of the semester here. All of that can be brought into Unity as well. So it's not just things that start as digital assets. Things can start as analog assets and then get transferred and converted and brought into Unity. Cool. There we go. Let's come back over here. Okay, before we get into the interface, for the sake of time here, let's switch gears and just sort of mentally reset. We've sort of set the table here about what's going on. We've done all of our bureaucratic stuff. Just for the sake, I mean, we don't have a yeah, maybe those of you who are live online right now could just do a like 2-sentence introduction and just put it on there, and then I'll read it out as we go. You know, not super lengthy, but here in person, just so I can try and get everyone's name. Let's do that. For right now, we're going to be very analog in that I'm just going to turn the camera around so you can see part of the room. Again, remember, towards the end here, I'm going to flip the screen maybe in about 20 minutes. And so I want everybody to go around the room. Your name, right? How you would like to be addressed in class, please. What program you're in at GCC. If you need to do some more research about that, just say like, I need to work on that. And then something that you're excited to learn this semester. Okay, so 3 things: name, program at GCC. Actually, let's say program and like how long you've been studying at Glendale. Okay, like what semester is this for you? And then something you're excited to learn. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this around. This is not going to be great framing, although now I have this other thing here. I can kind of do this. We're working on the camera situation here. There's some, it'll get better over the course of the semester. Remember, we're brand new here. The fact that any of this works today is only due to the fact of like a lot of like crazy labor by Tony and hundreds of other people. So cool. Let's start over here.
I'm Brian.
Hi, Brian.
This is my 3rd semester. I'm studying for animation certificate. So far.
Okay, great. So your 3rd semester. So you took classes last fall and spring? Okay, awesome. Welcome, Brian. Why don't we do, Brandon, you want to do yours?
Hi, my name's Brandon. I'm technically in the digital media arts program for the AS, and I'm excited to learn more about Blender, like the workflow, and just
Cool. Welcome, Brandon. All right, we'll clap after each one. Let's clap. Let's clap. Well, if nothing else, will wake up our. There we go. Kate?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Kate. I've been here for this semester. I'm studying for animation.
Kate, would you mind standing up?
Oh,
Everybody else too. Like you guys got away with it, but let's see.
so my name is Kate. I've been studying this semester here. I'm studying for animation and time-based media. In my PhD degree. Yeah, so see how to like interact with animation models. Struggle with it and stuff and put it in.
Welcome, Kate. So we got Brian, Brandon, Kate, and
Hi, my name is Abigail. I'm studying in the video game production for specialization in game art. Really excited to learn about more of the Blender and the movie stuff. And this is my first semester.
awesome. Welcome, Abigail.
Hi, my name is Mark. I'm in the animation and time-based media class. It's my 3rd semester here, and I'm really looking forward to like the Unity and the VR stuff. It'll be a lot of fun.
Okay, awesome. Would you prefer I called you Mark?
Yeah, but you can call me Mark or Marcus. I just go by Mark.
Okay, I'll try to get Mark now. All right.
My name is McKenna. This is my 3rd semester here. I'm in the digital art track and I'm just excited to learn about animating 3D assets and doing my animated characters and expressions.
Cool, awesome, welcome. So McKenna, Mark, Abigail, Kate, Brandon, and Brian, and Julian. Okay, great. Welcome. Yeah, the audio may not be really great for everybody on the live stream there for right now, but we're trying. Okay, awesome. So Julian and
My name is Janelle.
Janelle?
Yes,
Janelle.
I'm earning my Digital Media Arts Associates, and this is my last semester, and I'm excited to learn more about it.
Okay, great. Welcome. Okay, Janelle and Julian next to each other, so that's easy J's on my part. And then McKenna, Mark, Abigail, Kate, Brandon, Brian, and
Do you want to start?
what's that?
Do you want to start?
Yes, please.
My name is Jacqueline.
Okay,
This is
3
my-
J's in a row. Easy.
This is my third semester here at Blender. I've only ever been online, so this is like my first class, so I'm kind of nervous, but I'm also I don't know. I really hope to learn more about animation. I've only been doing drawing, so
Okay, welcome. What was your name again? Jacqueline. Janelle, Julian. Maybe the J's were confused. Okay, right. And
Hi, my name is Celeste. I'm taking the animation CCL. I'm hoping to learn new things about animations and interaction. And this is my third year here.
welcome. And
My name is Katie. I'm doing the Video Game Production Game Art Associates. It's my first semester at GCC, but it's also my first semester in person. And I'm excited to learn more about community and
Phoebe? Phoebe. Welcome, Phoebe. So Phoebe, Celeste, Julian, Janelle, hold on, Jacqueline, Brandon, Kate, Abigail, Mark, McKenna, Brian, and
Max.
Max.
This is my third semester here. I'm in the time-based media. Time-based media. I would love Blender. Just want to learn new people.
Cool. Awesome. Welcome, Max. And
Hi, I'm Kyle, and I'm also in the video game production major. I've been drawing for 20 years, so finally learning animation would be very nice. And this is my first.
welcome, Kyle.
Hi, my name is Alejandra. This is my third semester here at GCC, and I'm getting my associates in animation and science. And I can't wait to learn.
Welcome, Alejandra.
Hi, my name is Dana. I'm in research media and animation. In my third semester, and now it's one of my units.
Great. Yana? Is that right?
Diana.
Yeah. Oh, Diana. Okay, yeah. Okay, right. All right. So Deanna, Alejandro, Kyle, Max, Phoebe, Celeste, Jacqueline, Janelle, Julian, Brandon, Kate, Abigail, Mark, McKenna, and Brian. Right? All right. We'll see if it can stick. Kind of. Okay. Let me turn this back around. Okay, and then let me. Yeah, this is pretty janky right now, but we're getting there. Let's see. And then over here, Dominic. Hello, everyone. My name is Dominic, pursuing a digital media art degree and getting associates this semester. Nicole, studying for my animation and time-based media degree. Excited to learn new things. Who else is here? Alani, currently pursuing a certificate in animation between GCC and MCC, and excited to learn Unity. And I think those are our main people. Fabio will be here on Wednesday. He's our digital media arts tutor. So we have someone to help with all of the digital media arts classes. He's available for answering questions at different times throughout the week, and then he'll be here to introduce himself on Wednesday, and so you'll meet him then. Cool. All right, we got the live stream over there. I think that's all the ones I saw as that was coming in. And then how are we doing on time? Okay, yeah, so hopefully most of you could hear that. Again, people on the live stream, I'm going to close this stream probably a little after 11. And or no, class, the class used to be from 9 to 11:30. And so it's hard for me to get that out of my mind. But now it's obviously 8:30 to 11. So I'll close this stream in like 20 minutes. And then I'm going to stream from my phone so we can walk around the building a little bit and see everything. So you guys can actually see something besides me just trying to jam this webcam around the room. Sound good? Okay. All right. So let's talk about Unity a little bit here. And I've got like a demo scene up that we can talk about the general layout of the program. Sound good? Okay, so again, notebooks out, hands ready. Cool. Okay. Let's just talk about the interface as it is here for the next couple minutes. And Wednesday, I'll back up and talk about installing Unity because there's some stuff to say there, but it's not as exciting as actually seeing some stuff happen. So let's do that. Okay, let's talk about our different parts of the interface here. So out of the box, it looks somewhat similar to Blender in that in the middle here, we've got a area where we can look around and see what's happening and in a place. This place could be filled with both 2D and 3D assets. Right now, this is just 3D stuff here in this place, individual things which can move around in this area. And so a lot of the visual language will be very similar to Blender. And so we have our 3 axes here. Even if we do a 2D project in Unity, it still exists in 3D space. So the phrase for that I would write down is that most of the time, even if you're doing a 2D thing, it's actually 2.5D, which is actually a world where everything is a cardboard cutout, but arranged in 3D space, right? So flat things that just sit there. So the default view is, always some sort of 3-dimensional area, even if we flatten everything out. We have our 3 axes here. And so those of you familiar from before, which letter is associated with the green? What's that? Y, exactly. And how about red? X, very good. And the blue? Z, right? Good. Memorize those. The good news is those colors correspond with those axes in every program. We have come to some kind of cultural consensus about which axis is which color. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have come to no consensus about what direction Y actually is. Okay. So this is the big difference to notice immediately from Blender. Those of you coming in with Blender chops, is that our up and down, meaning throwing a ball in the air, looking at the ceiling, looking down, this is the Y axis in Unity. What is it in Blender? Z, right. Okay, so that's a big one to notice right away. Does this seem unnecessarily confusing, especially if the only 2 programs that you know are Unity and Blender? Yes, very much. However, I'll throw up the chart later next week that shows, I have a chart I have to show you that allows you to see how different the axis direction can be program to program, right? Does it seem like maybe we should get this figured out and come to some more agreement what up and down is Yes, it'd be great, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. So keep that in mind. So the floor in Unity, the floor is an important plane because a lot of times you make stuff that like is like the real world, where there's a floor, there's a ceiling, there's walls, everything. And we talk about a plane, not an axis, but a plane in terms of 2 dimensions. And so the floor in Unity is the XZ plane. So I'd write that one down. In Blender, it's the XY plane. Up and down is Z. So we have this 3D area that's happening here. On the left, we have our hierarchy. So over here, our hierarchy of game objects. And so you'll see me abbreviate this often GO. Okay, so these are things that exist in our game. Now, this semester we're going to be making things that are, gamey games. There's winning, there's losing. But we're also going to make things that are interactive, not necessarily goal-based, right? Maybe a virtual reality experience where you don't win or you lose, you merely experience, right? But often I'll refer to it as a game. And even in our virtual reality experiences, they will be game objects, okay? So Unity is primarily a game engine, but it's not limited to just making games. There's people making interactive experiences in Unity. There's people making training materials in Unity. That's another big part of what we want to do in this lab here, is that all of this technology, yeah, it's great for playing Beat Saber, but what if you could use it to also train as an EMT? What if you could use it to learn CPR? What if you could use it to do psychological testing? All that kind of stuff, right? There's a lot of different types of experiences here and jobs associated with designing this kind of experiences that we'll talk about the rest of the course of the semester. Anyways, regardless of what it is or what the purpose of it is, that's, Unity views it as a game. These are game objects that exist in the game. Over here on the left, you'll notice that it has the same visual language as a lot of different programs, in that these things can be nested within each other. There are parent objects and child objects and grandchild objects and so on and so forth all the way down. The different icons for the different objects mean different things. We don't need to get into all of it right now. So over here we have game objects. Over here we can see that this this is a list of components. Components are things that go on a game object. And so one component that every game object has is a transform, right? The transform is this box up here that simply records the position, rotation, and scale of that object in space. Notice that all 3 of those parameters, the position, the rotation, and the scale, are 3-dimensional. So even when we work with quote-unquote 2D stuff, it'll have 3 numbers for its position, X, Y, and Z. Notice that this one has other components here. For instance, there's a light component, which allows you to adjust all the stuff about the light. There's this lens flare component, which adjusts the lens flare for the light. And then over here, this is important. Let me give us a little more space here. This is a script. Okay, so this is where we can start interacting with the code. So pieces of code are stored on scripts here. And for right now, what you should write down and memorize is even if you haven't done any coding at all, you're aware there are different coding languages, right? And the one that Unity operates with is called C#. Where is my sharp on the keyboard? How can I not find it all of a sudden? There we go. C#, right? So #. It's called C# though. Musicians, right? You see it. How many of you play an instrument of some kind or interactive music in some capacity? Yeah. Okay. So that's the beginning of my creative journey, starting in music. I'm a drummer. Most of the things I do are these interactive audiovisual performance pieces. You'll hear me use music as an analogy throughout the entire semester. So keep that in mind. The point there is that the # is the sharp sign when you're reading music, hence C# there. And so the code, writing things in C# allows you to design your own components that go on game objects so that game objects individually have logic or code that does something. And so as I click around on these different objects, you'll see that they have different components. So for instance here, this is a more standard sort of 3D object in that it has these 3 components on it there. These 3 go together to form most 3D objects, is that there's a transform. Where is this object in space? There's what's called a mesh filter. This essentially is the component that stores the mesh data. We'll talk about meshes in more detail, but the points, edges, and faces of the mesh. And then it has a mesh renderer. What does the word render mean? Take a stab at it. To visualize, to draw. Okay? So in some contexts, when you're taking drawing class, you're rendering with a pencil on paper. In the context of this class, we usually assume it to mean drawing on screen. Making the pixels show up on screen is to render on screen. Right? Those of you who have taken Blender, it's work, and then render button, right? Hit the render button in order to actually draw the frames that you've made in Blender. Here, the difference is that we are rendering in real time, meaning that in Blender, you could work, and hit render. And how long does it take for the Blender project to render? Question mark, right? Who knows? It could be pretty quick, or it could be really slow, right? Depending on what it is that you've asked the computer to do. When we play a video game or we have some sort of real-time experience, in order for you to interact with it, it can't take 2 minutes for it to show you the screen. That's not really what we consider to be interactive now, right? And so because of this, this is another reason we're using Unity, is that Unity is designed to render things very, very quickly, right? When we render things out of Blender, those of you who are taking 185, usually the metric we use to qualify rendering in Blender, where is any of my stuff? There we go. In Blender, when we render, the metric we use is seconds per frame, right? If it takes 1 second to render a frame, then I'm going to be able to output my movie pretty quick, right? We don't make super long things. So you can get your homework done fairly quickly. In Unity, the metric is inverted. It's frames per second. Because in order to have any sort of reasonable interactivity, we need to have the computer updating in a fairly instantaneous way, right? And, you know, gamers out there, what is a good FPS to have when you're playing games? 60 is like our typical, that's good, right? There's, quote unquote pro gamers where you're getting into, 120, am I capable of even seeing the difference between 60 and 120 at my age? No, I am not. Have I lost a lot of games online because of my frame rate? No, I lost games online because I'm not very good, right? And so 60 is great. Whereas up here, if we get to 1 frame per second, that's also like pretty good. So we see the massive difference here in this, right? Yeah. And then when we make a movie out of Blender, even regardless of how fast it rendered, what would be the frame rate we're usually using for the movie file? 24 FPS is the standard frame rate for animation and movies, right? Whereas games need a faster interaction usually. Can you play a game at 24 frames per second? Yeah, most games, yeah. But and in this case, the frame rate starts to come down to feel, right? 24 or 30 frames per second might feel unresponsive, even if you can't like quite pinpoint it's slower, right? It really comes down to a feeling there, right? Because 60 frames per second is generally acknowledged as right around pretty much the threshold of our human perception apparatus, right? We can only, it's not like in another 10 years, we'll all be playing games at 300 frames per second. There really isn't, because we can't even really see 300 frames per second, right? The way we experience time, your brain does a whole lot of like windowing about what's happening. How long the windows are, how many windows there are, all of that is for another day. But keep this in mind, okay? So this, you'll hear me refer to this paradigm up here, the Blender paradigm, as offline rendering, right? This is how movies and animation is made, right? You can solve your problems, right? One of the ways you could get your Blender project to render faster is by just rendering it on multiple computers, right? If you had every computer do 1 frame and you had 700 computers, you could do a 700 frame movie in 1 second, right? And this is how Hollywood, the industry works, is, we can offset any of our render requirements by simply using more resources. This is not really available when you're making a real-time project because it needs to run in real time. And so these are the 2 modes: offline rendering, movies, animation; real-time rendering, video games, interactive experiences. Okay, and so Unity is giving us that advantage there. And so we have our components over here, and the components go on game objects. Over here, we have our scene view. And so this is very analogous to what's happening in Blender. The navigation is a little bit different. This will be used, it'll take a little getting used to, is that this Blender navigation is different than other programs. Here, Alt left button is orbit, Alt middle mouse is move, and Alt right is zoom. You can also zoom with the scroll wheel, although that can be slow. And then if you hold down the middle mouse button, you can also move there. But here, Alt drag. So that'll take a little bit of getting used to, switching back and forth between Unity and Blender, but you'll get used to it. Down here, these are assets. And so essentially assets are files. This is also going to be different than Blender in that there's a lot of files that go in here. And this viewer down here, this is essentially the file browser. And so this is new in Unity. If you delete an asset, you delete it off the computer. It is gone. The same way that deleting it in the file browser makes it go away. So a little bit more high stakes. For right now, just don't delete anything in the assets. We'll talk more about how to manage this later. And then this is different. So we have scene view where we can, manage things. And then we have game view. And so this is where we work. And then this is what the player will experience. And if I tear this tab off and move it over here so that we can see both at the same time, you see that I can move and click on things over here. I can't move or click on anything over here because this is just showing me a preview of whatever the game camera is rendering at the time. And so this, when does this come into play? When we press the button up here, this is not the render button. This is put the game into play mode. And if I press the button for this demo, I believe, now that it's in play mode, over here, this has a first-person controller on it, which allows me to just sort of like move around this environment. And so on the right, this is what the player actually sees. And on the left, you can see the camera there moving around? That's the camera is attached to a game object that's moving throughout the scene. That's what's actually happening when you're doing this first-person controller work, like so. And yeah, there we can see it going into the distance and going up. And then if I were to come out over here, I could zoom in on wherever that is. And even while the game is being tested, you could move things in the game or move stuff around. There you go. Like even while the game's being played here, for instance, move this over there. There we go. I moved it into the game view. Let's just make it super huge for some reason. There we go. Like all of that's happening now while the game's played. But watch this. When I leave play mode by hitting stop, watch what happens. What happened? It went back to where it was, right? At first, that's kind of like a, what? But when you think about it, it makes sense, right? When you're playing the game, you don't want the player to be able to like permanently delete stuff from the game, right? When you kill the first Koopa in Mario, when you go back and start Mario 1-1, the Koopa is there again, right? You have not permanently erased him from existence. And so that's something you need to sort of wrap your mind around here at the beginning that may be a little bit counterintuitive, is that, when you're in play mode, you can create and destroy objects as part of the game. Those changes are not permanent to the structure of the game that you're making. So that's new for everybody. There's not a similar metaphor in Blender. Sound good? Questions so far on this intro? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream here. And then on my channel, people at home, you'll see the new live stream start from my phone as we sort of walk around the room in the new building here to give everybody a little bit of a tour. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and quit this and then look over there in just a minute. So I'm going to start that